We've seen duckies, we've seen Vikings, we've seen snoodles, and we've even seen stars that look like turtles. It's really a star though, trust me. Last time, I showed you the best of what VeggieTales has to offer. This beloved Christian children's series has touched the hearts of millions, and has also made dollars in the millions. All that cash. So of course, with that amount of money being made, of course the show is gonna go on forever and be run into the ground eventually. It's only natural. I mean, look what happened to SpongeBob, The Simpsons, Total Drama, Family Guy. Oh, it's happened to so many, and presumably more down the road. Oh, no. What I'm saying here is, for every up that this show has had, it seems to have also had a down. Some drops were steeper than others, but hey, that's life. Disclaimer, if you like these episodes, that's just fine. This is just my silly opinion. Go on and like whatever you want, while I go on and hate whatever I want. That's life. Opinions don't dictate everything. Unless you're on CNN, and then opinions are facts. Either way, here is my top 10 least favorite VeggieTales episodes. Number 10, Robin Good and His Not So Merry Men. To be honest, this was a very recent addition to the list. I wasn't planning on putting it here. Why is that? Well, to be honest, I kinda like the Robin Good segment. Yes, there are some annoying pieces, like every so often there'll be a joke that doesn't land, and there is this old lady. That kinda drags it down. Still, I kinda see the classic charm with this. It's not great, but I see it as decent. It's got a few jokes in there that make me laugh, I like the designs, and I think the story that it conveys is pretty decent. It's just that, well, it's not the best. So why is it on the worst list, you ask? Screaming into your computer, pulling out your hair, and banging on the floor with your feet? It's because of everything else. The silly song, Bubble Wrap. I've already touched on this before, but this song is a disappointment. For starters, I kind of thought the boys in the sink were a bit of a Little Joe Mo and the Big Exit kind of thing, like exclusively the Western stories. But hey, that's okay, as long as we see our favorite boy band back in action. Kind of. You know how the Belly Button song perfectly captured pop music and not only satirized the music very well, but also made it feel like an actual song? This only does the latter part, being that it sounds like a boring, dull, run-of-the-mill, nothing special, dime a dozen Disney Channel-esque boy band song. Not worth cracking a smile over, and not worth remembering. But let's talk about what really brings this whole thing down. Lenny and the Lost Birthday. This has to be one of the worst single segments in the show's history. It's so bad, it single-handedly put it on the list. Bubble Wrap is not great, but it's not terrible either. It's just regular bad. Lenny and the Lost Birthday is a ripoff of a Fairly Odd Parents episode. Let's be real. You remember the episode where Timmy is mad that no one remembers his birthday because everyone is obsessed with Chip Skylark? And then Vicky abducts Chip Skylark, and it turns out that he and Chip Skylark have the same birthday, but it turns out that it's not actually Timmy's birthday, because Timmy's birthday is actually the day after Chip Skylark's birthday. So everyone can keep going on about how great Chip Skylark is, while Timmy gets to have his birthday the next day, while remembering his adventure with Chip Skylark. Chip Skylark was in that episode, by the way. So yeah, VeggieTales is just doing Fairly Odd Parents here. And by Fairly Odd Parents, I mean without all the charm and the wit and the excitement. You know, like the later seasons. There was no joke to be had here. It's just constant stupidity, dull, boring, you name it, it fits in here. So bad it put the whole episode on the list. But if I had to say that much for my number 10 pick, you know we're in for a world of hurt. Number 9, Abe and the Amazing Promise. I've spoken about this one quite a bit before, so let's just kind of be brief here. It's a knockoff of Josh and the Big Wall. It's similar to when SpongeBob did the episode Boat Smarts to piggyback off the Krusty Krab training video, where it's kind of similar to a previous one, but just different enough to avoid accusations of being a knockoff. But like with SpongeBob, it doesn't work here. It's the same thing with Lenny and the Lost Birthday, just take everything that they took from the original and suck out all the fun. There are a couple little funny bits here and there, like the whole patience joke with the doctor, but I just kind of found Junior annoying, I found the setting dull and uninspiring, and I would have liked to see VeggieTales actually take on the story of Abraham. He's one of the most famous and influential figures in the Old Testament. He's got so many stories you can tell. And in fact, VeggieTales Live Reloaded has actually done one or two of those. Plug, 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 plug. So it just felt kinda disappointing to see this. The second segment is just kinda It's not really special. It's got maybe a couple nice things if I really look. The animation is fine. The songs are okay. Really it just kind of feels generic. But I do give them applause with my non-existent hands. Or do I have hands? Anyways, I give them applause for doing a story that's completely original. To my knowledge, this isn't based on anything. But just because it's not based on anything and is a completely original story somewhat, doesn't mean that it's interesting. It only is in bits and pieces. I know it's made for small children, but come on, give them at least some credit. And then there's the silly song. When you get down to it, this is just one of the most forgettable episodes in here. I keep even forgetting it exists. In fact, it's so forgotten that when Kyle accidentally lost his copy of this, it took him about a year to even realize it. It just leaves that little of an impact. It's ironic that it's a lesson in patience because this episode really tries my patience. Number 8, The Little House That Stood. You want to talk about kidified? You want to talk about dull? You want to talk about having absolutely nothing of value in here? Then go right to here. Every second of this has no redeeming quality. The Little House That Stood is everything people talk about when they talk about the new episodes being bad. It's based on a fairy tale. It's cheesy. It's cheap. The animation is nothing special. The writing is atrocious. It tries too hard to pander to the kids of today and to pander of the little kids show standards too. The last one was forgettable just because it was boring. This is forgettable because I've tried so hard to forget about it. Some people may try to refute that last little bit saying, it's not really based on a fairy tale, it's based off of a verse from Proverbs. It's based on a fairy tale more than it is actually about the verse. This represents everything that went wrong with it. It cares more about market appeal and commercial value than what it's actually supposed to do. Teach people about God. Maybe that's why it's at this point on the list. Because on its own, I'd probably put it at about 10. But just the sheer fact that I feel that this represents everything that the new show goes on to represent, it earns the number 8 slot. Number 7, Mary, Larry, and the True Light of Christmas. Easily the worst Christmas special. Every Christmas special that VeggieTales has done has something of note. Star Christmas had its beautiful story. St. Nicholas had its great emotional moments. The Little Drummer Boy had lovable characters. And even The Toy That Saved Christmas had some very memorable songs. This is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Stupid. It is so stupid. The story is absolutely pathetic. Once again, kidified, boring, has nothing going for it. Characters feel very off and very, very lackluster. The overall tone of this just kind of gives off, again, a feeling of we gotta get this to the market. We gotta make sure that everybody buys the DVD and make sure that they enjoy this. Ooh, and it's the holidays. We can really not try now because it's a Christmas special. Then we got the lesson. It's literally just the same thing that every VeggieTales Christmas episode tries to do. It's not about getting, it's about giving, and God, of course. The way Star Christmas did it was beautiful. The way that A Toy That Saved Christmas did it was alright, I suppose. The way this does it is terrible. It adds nothing new to the conversation. Why would you want to watch this one when you can literally watch any other episode and get the same idea? Oh, I know why. The guest star. Cy Robertson guest stars as... what's the character's name? I don't know. It's just Cy Robertson. This was all over the marketing. In fact, it's even where the lesson should be. On a lot of copies of the DVD, you can find a sticker that advertises the guest star rather than the actual lesson. Once again, representing the modern values here. Not only that, but Cy Robertson does an absolutely terrible job doing the character. Not only does he put no emotion into it, but it's not even a character. He's just talking into a microphone. Yeah, make him green, give him the same beard and glasses, boom, it's a new character. Isn't creativity so easy? Top it all off with a plot that you could find on pretty much any after-school special around Christmas time. You've got Mary Larry and the True Light of Christmas. This is one light I just can't wait to turn off. Number 6, The Princess and the Pop Star. It's The Prince and the Pauper. It's just that. One of those that kind of sticks too close to the original source material, but doesn't really put anything new and fun in here. You know, like what a lot of people say for Esther, with that it's just kind of the story and nothing else, so it just kind of makes it boring. That, along with a slow pace. I'll stop talking about that now. The only difference here is that they try to pander to the Hannah Montana crowd. After Hannah Montana stopped being a thing, and after people stopped caring about her. This one was just made to push a bunch of catchy, quote-unquote, pop songs, and pander to the little girl market. Although, this isn't the only episode that panders to the little girl market. We'll get there soon. But it's just glitz this, singing that, ooh, fabulous superstar. All for a typical lesson of the grass is always greener on the other side. This is a simple lesson to be sure, but just because it's a simple lesson doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad lesson. Let's take a look at Lyle, for example. Sharing is the most juvenile lesson you could possibly teach. But they actually sit down and have some time to talk about it, and they cover it from multiple angles. Whether that it makes God happy, it gets you new friends, it gives you a positive feeling, that sort of stuff. What we got here? The same thing you could find on a doormat. It just feels like one of those where it's kind of like, ooh, let's just get the lesson out of the way so we can start getting out the real important stuff, like the songs and the other songs. Buy the CD. Cheap, hollow, plastic, nothing real, nothing funny, nothing worth remembering. Next one. Number 5, The Wonderful World of Autotainment. Why does this have wonderful in the name? It's not. It's like it's false advertising. Now on my last list, and yes, this was on that terrible old last list, I had people say that they actually liked this one. Good for you. Along with most fans, deride this episode. Why? This has to be one of the laziest things they've ever done. First of all, none of the songs here are actually made for this. They were already on pre-existing CDs and soundtracks. It's like a bunch of people with big ideas said, hey, we have all these songs, let's just go ahead and do it. Let's animate stuff to it, yeah! Ooh, and also let's sell it for about $8 a DVD. Money in the bank. Which that could work if these were just little shorts on Big Idea's website at the time. That actually would be kind of fun, or maybe as bonus material. Or maybe make them part of a silly song compilation. You haven't done any since End of Silliness. Or sing-along songs with Jonah. You know what I mean. But no, we get these songs that are half good, half obnoxious. It really depends. The quality varies here a lot. Then they throw in a lot of filler, like the whole Aardvark thing or the lunch segment. Yeah, there's that whole theme of, ooh, the future is cool, and ooh, look, it's the ventriloquism bots from 321 Penguins. Too bad they're annoying here. And too bad all Bob and Larry get to do is have Larry say, oh, come on, Bob, the future is cool. And Bob say, no way, Larry, this isn't cool, it's terrible. They just throw a lesson in right at the end so that they can, in universe, justify this thing's existence. And of course, it's just a typical, generic, we didn't even think about this lesson. Why am I harping on the lesson so much? Well, because VeggieTales was supposed to be an educational content show. Bill Vischer said he wanted to make this more of a ministry than a show. Therefore, I'm gonna judge this based on his original intent. But the content still is terrible here, too. Not only do the songs have varying quality, but the animation isn't great either. Some of the lighting's kinda off, and the shading and shadows, not great. You can tell this whole thing was just slapped together. But you know what? I'll give it to Big Idea here. They realized their mistake. This thing is now out of print and is very difficult to find. Yes, you can get a hold of some VHS tapes, but DVDs are kind of sparse, and it's not even available on the All the Shows collection.
Tess. Hey, listen, I don't want to be that guy, but all of your points that you made was basically ripped off of my Autotainment reviews. So if you don't believe me, you can go check it out right over there. And yeah. Tess, you stupid hack!
It's like they're trying to bury this. and they realized it was a mistake. Well, good on you, Big Idea, but judging by the fact that this is number 4 on the list, there should be others you should consider along with that. The word that describes autotainment is pure lazy. Lazy is the word, absolutely lazy. They half did everything that made the show loved in the first place. Half did the songs, half did the writing, half did the animation, half did the characters, half did the thought. And I guess they barely even did the lesson, so that's not even half. If you really want to listen to those songs, get the soundtrack. There's nothing in this episode that you can't get without listening to the soundtrack. And that's all I gotta say about that. Number 4, The League of Incredible Vegetables. Why do all the worst ones seem to have positive adjectives in their name? There are a few fans that really like this one for some reason. I think it's because Larry Boy's in it. Well, I mean, that's usually a selling point, but not here. And of course, there's a lot of people that will always jump to its rescue, like Christian Nutrition and... Nevertheless, I still don't find any enjoyment in this one. The only problem is, I've already said this at least twice before, and all the points I have against it were ones that were used on this list already. But to sum up, here are my thoughts. This is one of the most pandering things I've ever seen come out of this studio. It's very clear that they wanted to just sell toys. It's evident by the fact that Larry Boy and his friends are just kind of an afterthought to Junior's character, who, by the way, is very annoying in this one. I know some people find Junior Asparagus to be annoying. I don't, except here. Too screechy, too whiny, yeah. This thing is basically like tofu. No substance, no flavor, no spice, no anything. But unlike tofu, it's got no nutritional value. It's ironic because I'm talking about vegetables. This episode does one of my absolute least favorite things that this show went on to do. Repeating lessons. Not just repeating a lesson, but their first lesson. Handling fear. Where's God when I'm scared? While it isn't really a fantastic episode, it is certainly beloved. And I must say, the thing it does best is teach the lesson. Yes, despite the clunky animation and very obvious synth music, the lesson is very well done. Here, let's compare. Like Lyle the Kindly Viking, Where's God When I'm Scared covers the lesson of fear in multiple angles. God's strong and he can get us through anything. He's bigger than any fear we have down here because he's heavenly and all-powerful. When we're on his side, everything's gonna work out even if it isn't instant, and even when things seem like they're at their worst. What does League of Incredible Vegetables do? Don't be afraid. I think we all know who does the better lesson teaching here, right? What? No! Why do I even bother? So, if you really want to learn about fear, go to Where's God When I'm Scared. You want Larry Boy action where you know he gets to do stuff and is actually in character, go watch any of the other 3 episodes. If you want to watch an over half-hour commercial for toys that no one really bought, this is your thing. Hoo boy. Number 3, Noah's Ark. Talk about a sad episode to go out on. The final ever real VeggieTales episode, and it's the 3rd worst. Ever since this thing came out, I have always been on the front lines telling everybody how terrible it is. And yeah, my thoughts haven't changed. The character design's ugly. What? The songs are some of the most generic pieces of trash I've ever heard. Again, like Princess and the Pop Star, it's just, ooh, let's be marketable, let's be kinda catchy, but mostly forgettable. Wayne Brady is way out of place here. He doesn't even do a good job. Like Robertson, all he does is just talk into the microphone and give it his half. And why is he even here? Wayne Brady is not okay for kids. Is he even a Christian? This story also reeks of marketing in the sense that it's just trying way too hard to be cool. Remember that totally not pointless giant squid at the end? Yeah, that added a lot. It's also kind of loud with a lot of shouting and a lot of shrill voices. Just overall unpleasant. While Big Ideas shelved the idea of a Noah's Ark adaptation because of all the water, I think that it was kind of God telling him that it would end up being something like this. Not funny, very annoying, very unnecessary episode. And a big, big stain on the reputation of the show, and a terrible one to go out on. I've spoken at length about this one in the many years I've been doing this. And let's be honest, we all know why everybody hates this one. So, let's move on to number 2. Number 2, 'Twas the Night Before Easter. Yes, my original pick for the worst episode. It's only number 2. I found one worse. I actually did it. What is it? Well, you're just gonna have to wait. We're talking about this one now. We all love Star of Christmas, don't we? It was a beautiful story with wonderful animation for the time, fun songs, great characters, everything you could ever want. So let's just get a big old vacuum and then stick it to the side of Star of Christmas, suck out all the cool stuff, and boom, there we go. It's been said time and time again, all they did was reskin Star of Christmas as Easter. No, not an Easter Carol, this one. Yeah, it's funny. The one that should, by all accounts, have been a reskin of Star of Christmas, being a thing about Easter with the same characters, was actually a different, unique, and equally compelling story. This? Nope. And to think I thought that Abe and the Amazing Promise was just a cash grab ripoff. But it's a ripoff in the sense that doesn't get what made the original special. It throws in lame jokes, it throws in loudness, it throws in boring songs. And of course, to make room for all that, it took away all the charm. The only thing that slightly worked about this was the barbershop quartet joke. That at least made me crack a smile. Everything else, I was frowning from ear to ear. It's got all the laziness of autotainment and all the rip-offiness of Abe and the Amazing Promise. It's like finding that one Easter egg that's been hidden for all this time. You know, since Easter. And Easter was last year. That sums up this whole episode, just one giant rotten egg. But before we talk about number 1, let's talk about some honorable mentions! Celery Night Fever. A repeated lesson, generic story, not very many laughs. Simple as that. Duke and the Great Pie War. Well. Sorry I fell asleep there. And the most surprising entry on this list is A Meaningful Life. Yes, it's on here. I put this at a pretty low spot on my top 10 best episodes last time, but now it's in the honorable mentions for worst? Why? Every time I watch this thing, it just gets worse. I always notice little problems, and they just start adding up more and more and more to the point where it's just frustrating. This is one of the few I don't like watching because I want to like it, I really do. It has a fun song, one. It's got a couple funny jokes, and I really do think it had a good heart behind it. That's the one thing this thing has. But it's all the little things, like how this is pretty much just a bait and switch copy of the actual source material. How it's got a really depressing tone, or that picture of pregnant Petunia. Ugh! Every time I watch this, I notice a little thing that just gets on my nerves, and they add up. And I start to wonder why I even liked it in the first place. Well, that was depressing. On to the number 1 pick. The number 1 worst episode in VeggieTales history is Larry Boy and the Fib from Outer Space. This is one of the most racist things I have ever seen. I mean, how it talks about little blue round people. I was so offended. I mean, I myself am not a little round blue person, but I was appalled. They advertise them as just big, horrible monsters who want to do harm to everybody and eat our children. That's not how they are. That's not who they really are. Racist. Number 1 worst episode, Sweet Pea Beauty. What, are you surprised, really? One of my biggest regrets in life, and this shows you how few I have, is that I put this in the honorable mentions of the worst list last time. How? How did this not make number 1? This is easily the worst thing Big Idea has ever made. The absolute worst. I would watch 'Twas the Night Before Easter on repeat for 10 hours rather than watch this again. So much about this is absolutely, fundamentally broken. Let's start with the silly song. Meh. Now let's get on to the rest of it. Ooh boy. I'm gonna come right out and say this. The Snoodlerella segment just boils my blood. Remember how wonderful and artistic a Snoodle's Tale was? Well, this is what happens when artists intentionally crap all over it. Snoodle's Tale was a pretty big hit and a lot of people love it. What do we do with it? I know, let's just cash in on it without any sort of thought or care. Genius! While I'm not gonna say Snoodle's Tale is the most original thing out there, after all, it did heavily borrow from the style of Dr. Seuss, it was still a wonderful, fun, enjoyable ride with some very strong emotional moments. This is just Cinderella. I'm not saying it's based off Cinderella, it just is. Yeah, throw in some rhymes here and just make humans wear Snoodle costumes and that's what you got. It adds no new twist, no new sensibility, even the lesson is recycled from the actual story. Also, a bit of a small note, but I really hate that they revealed the Snoodle creator here. I bet a lot of people won't be as bothered by it as I was, but, well, I am bothered by it. I liked the mystery and the intrigue surrounding him. I liked the ability to imagine what he looked like and imagine his scope and his power. But nope, kids can't understand complex themes, everything has to be explained to them because life is full of answers. And then, of course, it's taught in a very slow, dull... What? Oh yeah, it's boring. Sweet Pea Beauty, on the other hand, the segment itself, that is so sugary and so overly sweet, I think I'm getting diabetes just by watching the footage back. This segment can be summarized as Disney without the charm, fun, or intelligence. So, you know, modern Disney. It doesn't even feel like a strong Disney parody, it's kind of just going through the motions. This is the checklist episode, it really is. Let's see, there's the colorful sidekicks, check. The pretty princess, check. The dashing hero, check. The evil villain, check. And they don't play with any of these themes either. They just throw them on out there because they know that it's going to be commercially acceptable. And that's why this was made. It wasn't made to tell any actual compelling lesson. It wasn't made to actually make a difference. No, it was made to pander to the little girls. Because little girls, they all love princesses. They all love pink and beauty and blah. Basically, they cobbled something together and just threw it on out there. And they didn't even really care about it. Wanna know how I know? Look at this animation. This isn't even finished. This looks like some of the digital dailies you'd get from Jonah. Watch. Look at this clip. Or this one. Or this one. Does any of this look finished? How could they release this if they cared? Well, conveniently on the commentary, they don't really pay attention to the horrific unfinished animation. They just focus on nothing of note. It's like this episode's intentionally trying to make itself unbearable in every way. You want to know something else that really bothers me too? As much as I've seen people complain about this one, I've never heard the specific point be relayed, but it's a waste of a lesson. Yeah, it's one of those that just kind of talks about the lesson and doesn't really go into it, but the thing is, especially in today's hyper-image conscious society, with a lot of superficial morals and values, this lesson is needed for not just girls, but for guys too. Everyone needs this. Beauty is not on the outside, it's on the inside, and no matter what, God's always gonna view you as a beautiful, wonderful creation, no matter who you are or what you've done. Of course, A Snoodle's Tale already touched on this, but hey, any expansion on this would always be welcome. Because you know what? A lot of people, whether they like to admit it or not, they struggle with this all the time. Like I said, the world environment is not really helping. But this wasted what could have been a very, very good educational point and just decided to make it a cheap cash grab. Literally nothing about this is good. Even the music is just generic, dull, and boring. It's both frustrating and boring you to tears. Wow. Just a wonderful old pot of hate stew. Hate stew. So for all those reasons and many, many more, the many more being stuff I've already listed for all these other episodes, Sweet Pea Beauty is the absolute worst VeggieTales episode of all time. So that's my list of top 10 least favorite VeggieTales episodes. VeggieTales month is not over yet though, folks. We still got one more video we're gonna get on out soon. What is it? Well, let me tell you, it's gonna be a really good video, so I hope. You see, the video is about